The Sorting Hat had some trouble making a decision, as well as focusing on those witches and wizards who didn't always feel that the Sorting Hat had placed them in the right house. In today's video, we'll be discussing two characters here, Draco Malfoy and Hermione Granger. We'll begin first with what if Draco hadn't been sorted into Slytherin, but Gryffindor? What would have changed in the story? And also why Hermione wasn't sorted into Ravenclaw? If you want me to do the same with other characters, like what if Ron was in Hufflepuff or Harry in Slytherin, please comment your idea down below. But for now, let's get started. Draco Malfoy was a fool, loathsome, evil little cockroach according to Hermione, but things could have been different if he had been sorted into a different house, Gryffindor for example. Would Draco have become friends with Harry, Ron and Hermione? It's safe to say that Harry's first impression of Draco Malfoy in Madame Malkin's was not a positive one. Malfoy managed to quite impressively come across as rude, obnoxious and arrogant within the space of a few minutes. At that moment, Malfoy was preparing for school where he thought he would be the star, confident he was going to be in Slytherin and secure in his family, wealth and status. Malfoy would really struggle with being sorted into a house he didn't want, or indeed a house his family wouldn't approve. Draco would know that he would need to make allies quickly, and being friends with the famous Harry Potter would be the right decision. Yet still, it would have been very difficult for Draco to become friends with them. Draco's prejudice ran deep, and he would want nothing to do with Muggle-born students, including Hermione. Such views aren't as tolerated in Gryffindor, so Draco would probably have had to keep quiet. Instead, Draco would try to manipulate Harry and Ron and turn them against Hermione while keeping his true feelings a secret. If he had been successful, it would have been a much shorter series. Surely Harry and Ron wouldn't have made it past the Philosopher's Stone without Hermione, and Voldemort would have claimed victory. Would Draco have rejected his family beliefs? Being a Gryffindor in a family full of Slytherin wouldn't be easy, and Malfoy would have been conflicted. At home, his head would have been filled with anti-Muggle affections fed to him by his parents. It takes a strong person to stand up to their family, and it's likely Malfoy would have been too insecure to do so. That's not to say that it's impossible for someone in his situation to push back. Sirius Black is one of the greatest examples. He sacrificed his home and his relationship with his family because he knew deep down that he was right. Malfoy just doesn't seem to be built from the same stuff. He prefers to do the easy thing, remaining on good terms with his family, than sacrificing it all for popularity at the school. What would have happened to Crabbe and Goyle without Draco? Without Malfoy as their leader, they would have only had each other. While they come from families that supported Voldemort, their involvement in things would likely have been less significant. Crabbe would probably be still alive if his story hadn't been so related to Draco. Maybe Crabbe and Goyle wouldn't have gone down such a dark path, although with their parents being Death Eaters. Now the question here is, would Draco still have been a bully? If anyone were to describe a bully, we can imagine they would describe Draco Malfoy. Draco might not be nasty to those around him. If he was in Gryffindor, his bullying would have to take a different form. But Malfoy would still be trying to recruit followers to be around him. As a Slytherin, he had Crabbe and Goyle, and as a Gryffindor, we can see him trying to recruit someone like Neville. He's someone who Malfoy would think he could easily control. Would Draco still have supported Voldemort? With a family so connected to Lord Voldemort and his followers, surely Draco would have still been inclined to support him too. Even if Draco was in Gryffindor, Voldemort's supporters can turn up anywhere. Always remember that Peter Pettigrew was a Gryffindor who betrayed his friends for the sake of Voldemort, and he seemingly had less reason to than Draco. But it's worth noting that in his older years, Draco's personality did change, which seemed to be down to the influences of his wife Astoria. Astoria, who also came from a pure-blood family, didn't support anti-Muggle sentiments, and the couple chose not to imprint such ideas onto their son, Scorpius. But this was all after Voldemort's death, so better influences during Voldemort's rise to power would have been enough to convince Draco to change. Which leads us to the question, would Draco have tried to kill Dumbledore? This is an interesting one. If Draco had been a Gryffindor, he still would have had parents strongly connected to Lord Voldemort, and Bellatrix Lestrange as an end. Malfoy Manor would have still been a good base for Voldemort. Dumbledore would remain a major threat, and Malfoy would have been in a good position to get close to him at school. But one major difference would be his relationship with Professor Snape. As head of Slytherin, Snape and Malfoy would probably not have been close. However, Dumbledore's plan plan would have been able to go ahead, and Snape would still involve in an unbreakable vow to protect Draco, that night at the top of Astronomy Tower would have happened in the same way. Draco would have been able to let the Death Eaters into Hogwarts. Therefore, even if Draco had been a Gryffindor, it's undoubtedly that he would have still tried and failed to kill Dumbledore. The only thing to overthink is this: Harry was suspicious of Draco's behavior in the Half-Blood Prince already. If they'd been in the same house and even been friends, Harry would have been able to watch Draco more closely, which would probably change the story. Now we move to Hermione Granger, discussing why she deserves to be sorted into Ravenclaw. Hermione Granger was a difficult choice for the Sorting Hat. It spent around 4 minutes in the book deliberating if she was a Gryffindor or Ravenclaw. Ravenclaw values wit, and Hermione's brains were like an ocean. Take her boggart for example. Professor McGonagall telling her she'd failed her exams was her worst fear. So why Hermione did end up in Gryffindor was because the Hat saw past Hermione's academic courage and noted the intense fire in her instead. In Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows in particular, Hermione withstood torture, stress, and handled the trip searching for Horcruxes. She was even brave enough to modify her parents' memories and identities so they forget her and not to get hurt. Rowena Ravenclaw, the founder of the house, favors education and intelligence above all, and Hermione has been considered to be the brightest witch of her age. It seems only fitting that she would be placed in the house of Ravenclaw instead of Gryffindor. She seems to be just as wise as she is brilliant. This is especially evident in the Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, when she says to Harry, "Me, books, and cleverness, they are far more important things like friendship and bravery." If we were to pick the most mature Hogwarts house, most of us would choose Ravenclaw. This house is filled with maturity and patience that houses like Gryffindor and Slytherin just don't seem to possess. Hermione is the only one trying to push her friends into becoming better versions of themselves. She's wildly intelligent, especially for her young age, and sometimes it's hard to believe that a person that young can manage to be so grown up and mature. The Ravenclaws have this riddle-solving device as their common room password because it keeps them constantly thinking, and this is just one of the many reasons she would fit on so perfectly in Ravenclaw's house. One of the many traits of Ravenclaw is that they absolutely love to read. You can always spot a Ravenclaw when you see someone with their nose stuck in a book. They are stimulated by knowledge and creativity. Hermione is constantly reading books, and she spends a lot of her time in the library, even in the restricted section. That was all for today's video. If you want me to make one about the other characters, please comment down below. Also don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.